What's going on everyone, Mike here, and in this video we're having side by side the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the Apple iPhone 5s. There are plenty of things that set these two apart, including the size, the different materials used for their construction, the hardware, the operating systems and their special features. But which one of the two is the better phone today? Well, stick around till the end of this review and you'll find out. The Galaxy S5 is a revamped and slightly tweaked version of its predecessor, the S4. Much like the iPhone 5s is an incremental upgrade of the iPhone 5. That's why you're not going to be surprised by the size difference between these two. The iPhone 5s is a compact handset, easy to grab and hold, but at the same time packs a small 4-inch screen by today's standards. The Galaxy S5 on the other hand has received an even larger screen than the previous Galaxy flagship, a 5.1-inch one, and as a result has gained some millimeters around its waist as well. This makes the S5 rather large, even for an Android flagship, but if you're okay with large smartphones, you'll enjoy how it fits in the palm. The chrome plastic edges and the revamped rear plate, now smoother and with a dimpled pattern, do make the S5 feel better in hand, grippier, but the sensation that you have a rather cheap phone in front of you has not much changed from the S4, while on the other hand the iPhone 5s, with its aluminum and glass body, looks and feels a lot more like a premium device should. Either way, I put a bumper on my phones anyway, so they won't shatter when I eventually drop them, so the outer looks don't matter as much to me. Moving on, it's worth noting that the S5 is now IP57 certified, which means water and dust resistant. The backplate is still removable, allowing access to the battery and the SIM and microSD card trays. However, the USB connector on the bottom of the phone is covered now by a plastic flap, which in time might break. Either way, if you care about weather protection, you'll have to get used to that. All the other ports and buttons around the sides were inherited from the Galaxy S4, including the IR blaster on top, while the iPhone 5s lines pretty much the same connectors on its sides. There's of course the mute/lock switch on the left edge, next to the volume buttons, and the lightning port on the bottom lip, flanked by the speaker grills. On the Galaxy S5 the speaker is placed on the back of the phone and is rather loud, but the phone actually vibrates quite annoyingly at louder volume, and that's something to keep in mind. Screens take much of this phone's front faces. Of course, the massive 5.1-inch display on the Samsung pops out, and the puny 4-incher on the iPhone seems minuscule in comparison. You'll feel that in everyday use as well, when playing games, watching movies, and so on. However, quality-wise, the Retina display on the iPhone has nothing to be ashamed of when facing its rival. In fact, the iPhone's IPS panel is still brighter and more natural looking than the Galaxy's AMOLED panel. However, it's worth noting that the S5 screen is at its own term brighter than the one on the S4, and you'll see that in a different video. On top of that, the AMOLED panel does display deeper blacks and muddier whites, has larger viewing angles, and the increased pixel density on the S5 screen does generate sharper content, although that's quite difficult to spot with the bare eye. Screens aside, both phones feature some sensors and cameras on their front face. There are a few extras on the S5, including the AirView sensor and the RGB notification LED. Below the screens, each phone packs a home button that integrates a fingerprint reader, and the button is flanked by capacitive back and multitasking controls on the Samsung. That aside, it's worth noting that the two fingerprint readers work in different ways. While on the iPhone you have to put and keep your finger over the home button, on the Samsung you have to swipe it vertically over the sensor. Speaking of sensors, you might have noticed by now that the Samsung Galaxy S5 has a heart rate sensor on its back, which paired with S-Health and probably other apps in the future, works as a heart rate monitor. The iPhone 5s lacks such fancy features and lacks some of the connectivity options available on the Galaxy, like the IR blaster, the NFC and the download booster enhancement that allows us to download large files faster using the Wi-Fi and cellular networks at the same time. In fact, the Galaxy does pack more features than the iPhone 5s and software tweaks as well. It runs Android 4.4.2 KitKat by the way, with TouchWiz on top, but this version of Samsung's UI has been majorly redesigned. It is now flatter and somewhat closer to the stock Android experience. The iPhone runs the latest version of iOS, 7.1, with everything that it brings. I'm not going to get in depth here. Long story short though, both phones will handle well anything you might throw at them, from the basic everyday tasks to games and multimedia content. Both pack proprietary apps and both have access to vast collections of third-party content. And last but not least, both are very fast. Although in some cases, the iPhone 5s did seem to respond quicker to certain commands, like launching the dialer or accessing the context pane, for instance. And that despite the fact that on paper and in benchmarks, the Samsung Galaxy S5 looks stronger than the iPhone 5s. It does surprise me that Samsung only included 2GB of RAM on this device and not 3 like on their latest Note, but I can't say that you'll really feel that in everyday use. After all, the iPhone only packs 1GB of RAM and still works fine, although that's a completely different story. Anyway, let's move on and turn our attention on the cameras. The iPhone 5s is, as you probably know by now, one of the best camera phones out there. It does offer a simple camera interface with few options, but it just works extremely well in most conditions, low light included. Samsung really worked on improving the camera experience on the S5 though. They put a larger sensor in it with fast autofocus and shutter speeds, plus tons of functions, shooting modes and manual tweaks. So in terms of what you can do with a camera, the S5 steps in front. In terms of real-life performances though, the S5 takes brilliant pictures in proper light and decent ones in poor light. They are not as grainy as the ones coming out of the iPhone in these conditions, but they tend to be shakier and don't capture the same amount of details. However, when it comes to taking videos, the S5 is just as good as the iPhone 5s, if not better, due to its ability to shoot UHD content and both slow and fast motion Full HD clips. As we get closer to the end of this video, I feel like these phones really are neck and neck. The Samsung does pack overall more features and tweaks, while the iPhone sticks closer to the basics, but it does everything that it can do really well. What's more importantly is that both these phones can hold their charge. With regular use, both can easily take you through the day and will last till the second evening in most cases. If used lightly, with the screens dimmed, the S5 will outlast the iPhone 5s, especially since the iOS 7.1 update, which has crippled the battery life on my unit. However, if you'll pump up the brightness, don't expect more than 4 hours of screen time on this Galaxy, while the iPhone will go for longer. Long story short though, both offer enough juice for a full day's worth and even more, and that's alright by my standards. Okay, all this being said, it's time to draw some conclusions. The iPhone 5s is a solid competitor for the Galaxy S5 if you want a smaller compact phone. Like I said above, it doesn't pack as many features, but everything that it does, it tends to do well. The Galaxy S5 offers more though, the basics and all sorts of extra hardware features and software improvements. You might not use most of them often, but they're still good to have around when needed. All these do come in a much larger phone, but if you're fine with this particular aspect and especially if you're into Android, you'll surely appreciate the Galaxy S5 more than the iPhone 5s. However, the S5's battle is not necessarily with the iPhone 5s this year. It's with the other Android flagships soon to become available, like the Sony Xperia Z2, the new HTC One or the LG G3, to name just a few. But more about those in some future clips. Anyway, that's about it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'd really like to know which of these phones would you pick and why, so post your comments below. Before you go though, make sure to leave a thumbs up if you appreciated this clip and share it on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or wherever else you're active. This would really help us a lot. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos on the Samsung Galaxy S5 and other popular smartphones. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.